Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial we'll be finally creating the class which basically handles all the data and puts them all together into a database. So basically in the previous tutorial we have created this activity which is the register activity, and we have also written the code to basically extract the values from all the three fields from this. And basically we have created a button and we have added an on-click method to this button which allows us to extract these values and save them into a string. Now without wasting any time, let's go ahead and create a brand new class to basically insert values into database. So go to the Java folder, go to the very first folder and right click on it and create a new Java class. And remember, don't create an activity, create a simple single Java class and name this as background task. And the purpose of naming this as background task is because it is going to be a background task. It is going to get executed in the background and the user would be unaware of it. So simply click OK. And the very first thing which we do is that we are going to make this class extend async task. And basically the reason for doing that is we are basically going to inherit some methods from the async task. So make sure that you extend the async task. So we type extends async task, and basically we are going to need to mention some parameters for the async task. So for the moment we are going to mention all the three parameters as void, and later on in the course of making this application we are going to change it. Now even if we add in the parameters, this thing is still going to show us an error, and if we click on this, it is going to ask us to implement methods. And the reason for that is that we have basically extended the background task to async task, and we actually need to implement some methods from this. So simply click on implement methods, and it is going to ask us to basically implement a method which is called as the do in background method. So simply click OK. And now as you could see, we have the method which is called as do in background. Now also we need to implement a few methods, or actually three methods inside this. So basically in order to implement these methods we actually don't need to type in manually. So in order to avoid typing all the things manually, we could simply press Alt, hold the Alt key and then hit the insert key. So when you hold the Alt key and hit the insert key, you will be prompted with this small, what you could say, window. And the next thing which you need to do is that you basically need to select override methods, and the methods which we are going to use from here are these three methods. So the very first method is the on post execute method, so make sure that you select this. Then the second method is going to be this method on pre-execute, and the final one is going to be on progress update. So make sure that you select these methods and simply hit OK. Now once you have these three methods, the next thing which you do is that you basically go ahead and create a brand new constructor. So basically in order to constructor, we go right over here, but even before creating a constructor we actually need to pass in the context. So we create a context, so we type context, let's name this thing as ctx, and now let's go ahead and create a constructor. So we type background task and basically pass in the context to the background task. So we type in context over here, context ctx, and inside it we are basically going to type this dot ctx equals ctx. Now if you don't understand why we have actually added this constructor, so simply hold on and you will be able to understand the usage of this in a few minutes. Now once we have the reference to it, the next thing which we do is that we are basically going to add in the code in these methods right over here. So basically we actually want to call these methods from the register.java. So simply go to register.java, and inside the register user method basically create a new string and call this string as, let's say, register. So we create a new string, so we type string, not strong, string equals string, and the name of this string is going to be method. So we type string method equals register, and basically we are going to create an object of the background task over here. So we type background task, and let's name it as background task equals new background task, and we are going to pass in this as a reference, and finally we are going to execute the method from the background task. So we type background task dot execute, and inside here we are going to pass in the method. So we type method over here. To this method we are going to pass in the 4 parameters, which is nothing but the name, password, contact and country. So we type name, password, contact and country. Okay, now once we have passed in these 3 parameters, it is actually going to show us an error, and the reason for this showing an error is that if we switch to the background task.java, as you could see, it has some different parameters over here. So the very first parameter here is void, and we actually need to change this parameter to string. So basically go here and change the first parameter to string. So now once it is changed, we also need to go into the do in background method. So this is the do in background method, and we also need to change this void to string. And as soon as we do it, as you could see, the error disappeared. Now the remaining code which we are going to type in the background task.java class is going to be inside the do in background method. So this do in background method is going to consist all of the code which is going to be performed in the background, so that we could basically use this code to insert values into the database. So the very first thing which we do is that we type in string method equals params of 0. So what this thing is going to do is that it is going to store the first parameter into the variable called string. Now the next thing which we need to do is that we actually need to check in if this method, the name of this method is equal to register. So if the name of this method is register, then in that case we actually need to perform the operation for the register method. So we type if method dot equals, and in double quotes we type in register. So in that case we want to perform the action which we are going to specify in here. Now also one more thing which we need to do is that we need to type in, or we need to create a string, and we need to call it URL or register URL. So we type in string reg underscore URL, and we actually need to mention the, what you could say, the actual path of the database on our local host. So by default path of my database is going to be http /10.0.2.2 slash the name of the folder, which is project, and the actual name of the file which actually contains the PHP script to register. So that is going to be slash register.php. And in order to avoid confusion, let me just cross verify this URL. So I'm going to pause this video and I'm going to confirm if this thing is the exact URL. Okay, so I have basically cross verified, and this is the same exact link where the actual database lies. So we are good to go, and actually change this to reg, it has become rer. So basically the reason for using this URL or the string URL is to store the actual URL where the actual database lies, so that we could reference it to insert our values. Okay, now once we have this thing, the next thing which we do is that we again go inside this if, and we extract the other parameters. So we type string name equals params of 1, and actually the reason for typing in the first parameter is because the next parameter after the method name is going to be the name. So this is the 0th parameter, this is the first, second, third and fourth. So let's do this for the remaining parameters. So we type string, the next parameter is password, So we type string password equals params of 2. Then we type in string, and the next parameter is contact. So we type string contact equals params of 3, and the final one, or the final string, is going to be string country equals params of 4. So once we have all these parameters, the next thing which we do is that we basically go ahead and create the object of URL. So in order to create object of URL, we type URL, and let's name this object as URL. So we type URL equals new URL, and to this URL we are basically going to pass in the string URL which we have created. So simply pass in register URL, and as soon as we add it, we are going to basically get an error. So basically let's just click on it and click on this bulb right here, and it is going to ask us to surround this thing with a try catch block. So simply click this thing, and you will have your code surrounded with a try catch block so as to handle the exceptions with this. Now the next thing which we do is that, as we basically want to send this to a database, we actually need to create the object of the HTTP URL connection. So we type HTTP URL connection, and let's name this thing as HTTP URL connection equals, then we type in URL, then basically we typecast it with HTTP URL connection, then we type URL dot open connection. Now again this thing is going to give us an error, and it is the same error. We actually need to handle the exception related to this. So simply click on this bulb, and instead of just surrounding it with try catch, simply click on this option which says add catch clause. So once we have added the catch clause for this and handled its exception correctly, the error is basically going to disappear and we are good to go. So we go ahead and type in the next code. So once we have this, the next thing which we need to do is that we need to set the request method. So if you're familiar with basic networking, then you might be familiar that whenever we actually need to put in some values into the database, we actually use a post method. So we type in HTTP URL connection dot set request method, and what the set request method does is that it basically mentions the method which we are going to use so as to basically transfer the data. So the method is going to be post. So once we have set up this method, the next thing which we need to do is that we actually need to set do output to be true. So we type in HTTP URL connection dot set do output true. Now after this, to basically send the data, we need to create an object of an output stream. So we go ahead and type output stream. Let's name this thing as OS. We type this equals HTTP URL connection dot get output stream. So basically what this line of code does is that it basically creates the object of the output stream, and it is going to basically allow us to send the data in the stream. So once we have this, the next thing which we do is that we also use a buffered reader. So we create an object of buffered reader. So we type buffered writer, as we are writing the data, and buffered reader is used whenever we are trying to read the data. So as in this case, as we want to write the data to the database, so we type buffered writer, and let's name this object as buffered writer equals new buffered writer, and within this we basically type in new output stream writer, and to this we basically pass in the object of the output stream. So we type OS, give a comma, and basically we need to specify the encoding. So the encoding for this is going to be UTF-8. Okay, now once we have these things set up, the next thing which we need to do is that we basically need to create a string and encode all the data into a particular string, and we need to call that string as data. So once we have created the buffered writer, the next thing which we need to do is that we basically need to encode the data by using the URL encoder. So we will be doing that in the upcoming tutorial. So that's it for this tutorial, and as you could see in this tutorial, we have basically got through halfway for writing the code for our background task so as to basically write the data into the database. So basically what we have done here is that we have created the we have created the background task.java, we have created the constructor for it, we have passed in the context to the constructor, then we have created the URL and we have stored it in a string, and basically we have extracted the parameters from the register.java method. So basically we have created the object of the background task here, and we have passed in the method name, the four parameters which are the name, password, contact and country, and we have extracted them over here. And once we are done with this, the next thing which we did is that we have basically created the HTTP URL connection object so as to basically establish a connection. We have used the post method, we have set the do output to be true, then we have created the output stream, and to basically write the data we have used the buffered writer. And in the next tutorial we'll be basically encoding the data and finally sending the data to the database. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you.